Thank you so much. So the past couple of days, we heard a lot of stories, a lot of case studies. We've been there too. FRC East has been there for quite some time. We've done concertos since 2000. We've implemented MRP a decade ago. We've had limited success, very high-profile success on very small pockets of our program. And we realized we could not continue on that. We were playing whack-a-mole. We'd shine one area up, right? We had the management capacity to do that, and we'd turn around. A shiny penny would show up over here. We'd go chase that, and tarnish would occur. And we did it over and over. We got the Shingo prizes to show for it. They're hanging on the wall, right? We've done all that. We realized that wasn't going to get us where we needed to be. We looked up, and we realized we are not competitive. We're not even competitive against our sister FRCs. We charge more per hour to our customers, $20 more per hour than our other FRCs. And that wasn't going to get it. We had to do better. Our on-time delivery was low. That was not supporting the warfighter, especially at a time of war. We support the Marines. Fleet Readiness Center East is the Marine depot. Our products are flown by the Marine Corps. They demand a high level of readiness, and we owe it to them to give them that. A little bit of a history. 1943, we cut down the trees, not we, because I wasn't there. We cut down the trees to build an airfield, and then we used the trees to build the buildings that we are in today. So the timber from the trees that were cut down, that's green, right? So that's real green, recycling right there. So we've been there since 43, and like almost every other government organization, if you don't like something, just change the name on it and reorganize, right? So we've been through a bunch of names changes. We've changed the color of our badges. We've had different code changes. But now we're the Fleet Readiness Centers. Fleet Readiness Centers came about as a response during the last BRAC. The first BRAC, we had 6 Navy depots. We lost 3. We were one of the survivors. The next BRAC, Fleet Readiness Centers synchronized the large industrial depots with the 4 deployed eye levels. We linked them together. So Navy, Marine Corps, eye levels are integrated with the large depots. That's how we became FRCs. A little bit of, we support vertical lift. We are the DoD Vertical Lift Center of Excellence. So if it's vertical and it goes on a small deck ship, we support it. That also means that we're in line for both V-22 and Joint Strike Fighter. We're the depot source repair for both of those platforms. Those are our aircraft and engine programs. AV-8, 2 models, 3 models really, night attack, radar, and our trainers. CH and MH-53, the heavy lift helicopter, going to be replaced soon by the 53K. CH-46, Vietnam era program, supposed to be sundown 15 years ago. We're not good at sundowning programs. They kind of hang around, right? So we've stood up and shut down that program many times, but we're still fixing H-46s. And matter of fact, we're going to be doing more because the Department of State is buying them, and we're going to refurbish them for the Department of State. Hueys, both the Cobras and the Hueys, including the upgrades to the new 4-bladed Huey, or the 4-bladed Cobra. V-22, we're doing mod work, and we're doing our normal inspections. We do the engines. The 402 is a large turbofan engine, about a 25,000-pound thrust class engine, and then we do a small number of turboshafts, T-58, 64s, and 400s. Component programs, GTSs, APUs, GTCs, we do a large number of those for everyone, for military, PBL partners, F-18, they all come to us. Dynamic components, landing gears, gearboxes, we're a major source of repair for those. We repair all the gearboxes for vertical lift aircraft in the Navy aviation arena. We also do rotor blades, both metal and composite rotor blades. Manufacturing, we started manufacturing as a manufacturer of last resort. If you're supporting legacy platforms that are inventory constrained, vendors shut down. There's no incentive for them to be making 1 or 2 items a year, so they shut down, and you have to make them yourself. So we've become a very robust manufacturing. We also have about 450 engineers on site and over 300 logisticians. We provide about 1 million direct hours of engineering and logistics support in support of all the platforms that you saw earlier. some of the odd things we do. Most of our platforms they aren't making anymore, and they're inventory constrained. So where do you go get them? You go get them out of the desert. They're out there in Tucson at AMARG, and you bring them in a C5. That's a 53 Franken monster that came out of AMARG. 16 years ago was the last time that flew, and we refurbished it and put 80 mods in it, and it's out there flying today. So we've done 10 of those. Upgrading the predominantly sheet metal 1W to a 1 Zulu composite aircraft. We've done over 30 of those now. This is a little bit dated. Aircraft are involved in mishaps. That's not a surprise, unfortunately. They save those aircraft, and then we repair them. So we put together 8 stricken AV-8s. They're all back out in the fleet flying. This is an unfortunate one that hit a ground support cart out on the runway in Yuma, and we put that back together. And then we're modifying Alpha V-22s to Bravo class. So these were the original V-22s. This is about 40 different mods that we put into this package. It's about a 300-day evolution to get these modified. We also, since we do support the Marines, we have to go where they are. So a while ago, when the first Desert Storm kicked up, we realized we have to be able to support them anywhere there are. So we have a rapid deployment team of about 135 people that can go within 24-hour notice anywhere in the world. We had a full deployment sit in Iraq the entire time the Marines were there, and just recently moved them from Iraq to Afghanistan. So we have civilian artisans in Afghanistan working to repair not only our aircraft, but any aircraft that comes their way. They jump on it and repair it. We occupy about 147 acres, but we have room to grow on the other side of our runway, and we have already started some work over there with some MilCon to work on some gearbox facilities and maybe possible lift fan facility for the Joint Strike Fighter engine. About 3,300 employees. We're the largest single employer east of 95 in the state of North Carolina, the birthplace of aviation, right? First in flight. There's always an argument between us and Ohio who actually has the Spirit's right up the road from us. They are now right up the road from us, and we have a very robust aviation consortium with a lot of the folks in that area now to promote jobs in this area, to get people excited about the aviation world. About 2.73 million hours of direct work per year split this way. Aircraft and components are our two largest. We used to do over 500,000 hours of engine work, and you can see last year it was only 150, and that may seem like a bad thing, but the reason that is the engines are 10 times more reliable today than they were before. So the T-58, T-64 engines that used to last literally a few months on wing are now lasting years on wing, so they don't need to come back to the depot. So that's good. When we can build reliability into a product, and they don't have to come in, we'll take that hit. We'll retrain those people and move them somewhere else. So good news. And you can see the growth of our manufacturing, over 110,000 items made last year. So like I said, we've done this before, right? We got the prizes on the wall to show for it. So why would we take on something this large? We still are delivering a lot of our projects late. The ones we put attention to, we can get them on time, but it's usually at the expense of something else. So delivering our projects late, exceeding our workload standards. We quote, just like a for-profit company, to our customers how many hours it's going to take to do a product, and we regularly exceed that. So, and that drives our rate up. And then high amount of rework. We have a push system, our inductions. We have other people who bring stuff to us and literally drop it off at our doorstep and say it's time to induct it. We have very little control on the meter of our inductions. So that's something we have to challenge with. And then each team have to staff to those peaks and valleys. So everyone's trying to get resources, and you have all these 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 major programs all trying to balance the peaks and valleys. It's a monstrous job. And then, like I said, our rate wasn't competitive. We had customers literally walking to every FRC, knocking on the door, pitting us against our enterprise brethren. Who can give us the best rate? And that's not a good position to be in. So, like I said, we've had Concerto, we've had DBR training. We have a workforce that is heavy into Lean and Six Sigma. We've trained almost everyone in the plant in that tool set. We needed to do something more holistic, so we came up with this re-engineering solution where we were going to increase throughput on all programs. We were going to identify all the constraints in the cycle to reduce the cycle time, and then improve our management system. How do our managers know what to focus on? We were not going to compromise quality. We had been on a journey of reducing our cost of poor quality over the past 4 years and have seen significant improvements, and we were not going to do anything that would stop that continued decline in cost of poor quality. At the same time, we are also on a VPP journey. Is anyone familiar with VPP? This is a safety. VPP star status is a indicator of how well you are in the safety arena. We've been on that journey also, and we wanted to continue our reduction in injuries within our plant. So we weren't going to put anything in place that would compromise safety and quality. Those were the two tenets that had to be untouched, or if not improved. We're also going to restructure. You've heard a lot about trying to create a constructive tension between those who are managing the projects and those who have the resources, right? To have that why, ask the 5 whys, so that people aren't just consuming. It's not a consumption model. So we created 10 IPTs. They are solely responsible for production performance. The rest of our organization is responsible for processes, facilities, and people. And then we were going to reorganize to also separate our execution phase from our logistics phase. So we used to commit to a project, bring it in the door, and then find out we don't have enough support equipment, we don't have the right tech pubs, we don't have the right material support. All the logistics elements were not in place. So we wanted a clear separation of saying, do we have all the logistics elements in place before we start committing to executing a project? All that would tie into our rate reduction goal. Little quick idea of the complexity here. Little graphic. 4 notional shops, we call them XR shops. These are the shops that actually complete a component and sell it, or complete a component that's needed for the aircraft. So you have 4 shops. They all, after they do the disassembly, they all need some reliance on cleaning, NDI, paint, machine shop, all those back shops, those common process support. So you end up with all those shops trying to figure out, what do I work on, right? Do I work on FIFO? Do I work on he who yells loudest? Do I work on the guy who brought me donuts this morning? What is the motivation to say, how do I get this worked? What ends up happening is all those items come back for assembly, and none of them are full kitted. They all have only achieved a portion of what's needed. And so you end up with schedules slip, rework, wait times, queues growing, all, just a mess. Aggravate it with the aircraft and engines. So you have the same thing, but now you disassemble an engine, and it feeds items both into the XR shops or feeds items directly into those common process shops. So now you have an aggravator, another aggravator, and then assembly. Assembly can pull both out of the XR shops and out of the disassembly shops. So we realized if we don't synchronize all of it, drain the swamp all at once and build it all back up, we are never going to get this thing working. We will only have limited success one at a time, and we'll continue playing whack-a-mole. Parts aren't available when needed. Sound familiar? Or we have them, but they're not where they're supposed to be. Everyone's got that problem. We certainly did. High volume of rework. If people can expedite, why not? Right? When we started, we found we had several thousand items with an expedite tag sticking on them. There were no rules about who could expedite what. During the first Desert Storm, we realized we needed to put attention to items that were going to be used in direct support of the war. So we said, let's make a rubber stamp and stamp the work orders that are war support. Within a week, every item in the plant had that stamp on it. And when everything's expedited, nothing's expedited. We had whole shops where everything in the shop was expedited. That I'm sure some of you have seen that. Peaks and valleys in production. So what do you staff to? If you're an IPT, you staff to the peaks. Why not? There's no consequence. When it comes a valley, we'll keep them busy. We'll do something with them. Who cares? No one would say, look, I don't need these guys for about 3 months. Who needs them? Because you might not get them back. You want to protect your resources. So there's a big challenge there. Shortage of resources. Everyone's pulling from the same common people. You really expose your superstars in an organization, right? They're the ones that everyone's pulling for them. The one that no one's calling, you might want to question. Do you really need those people? And then high level of overtime. Although we are not Japanese, we do work a lot of overtime. Big issue. We worked overtime and got nothing for it. Huge amounts of overtime. And we would come in and say, wow, that last quarter, look, we worked 28% overtime. Production go up 28%? Nothing for it. Recreational overtime. Lack of clear priorities across the shops. Stovepipes. How do I know how to break ties if I'm a manager? I learned this morning I'm the constraint. So I am him. I'm the manager. I'm the constraint. I've got to figure out how to do this better. And I've got to enable my other managers to do this, empower them to do this. Then without that, the artisans sit around waiting to do nothing. They're waiting for their full kit. They're waiting for someone to solve a problem. They're waiting for their test stand to be fixed. And then throughput kind of ebbed and flowed. And people were fidgeting with dials, and nothing really happened like you expected. So drum buffer rope for all our components and engines. These are small turnaround time items. We put drum buffer rope in place. And we didn't play around with whip reduction. We took 65% of the whip out. So this wasn't just carving around the edges. This was drastic. And when you pull that much whip out of a plant and people are comfortable with whip, it's comforting. When you're surrounded with whip, man, you got a job forever, right? You'll never finish it all. Look at it, it's piled to the ceiling. And then the next morning you walk in, it's all gone. And they say, well, if you finish this, just ask. I'll bring you another one. It's like people that heat their house with firewood, right? And they surround their house with cord wood, and they brag about their wood. And then if I came and took all the wood away and said, every time you need a log, open the door, I'll be there with a log. It's a leap of faith, Because if they don't trust that the next one's coming, what do they do with the one they got? Slow it down, man. They caress it. They love it. It's the last one. This is going to be perfect. That's what we see. It's human nature. So we're going to reduce all the weight. We pulled it all out of the plant. 10,000 items. Boom, gone. We're going to only release things at A0 minus 21. We're going to hold them and release them 21 days. We studied this. We looked at 280,000 items. We found that 96% of our items could be done in 21 days. Well under 21 days. Matter of fact, they could be done in 7 days. So 21-day release, that's what we put in place. Work them in FIFO and sort them by due date. So we have a dispatch report that gets sent out every morning to every single shop, automatic, feeds off our MRP2 system, work things in this order. It eases that decision of what do I work on next. That's what everyone wants to know, right? That's what all you want is your boss to tell you, what do you want me to work on next? What's the highest priority item? So ease that decision. Make it simple. Don't make them decide. And then have a very robust exception part. Some items cannot be done in 21 days. I don't care how you do it. So you have to have a way to call those exception parts and have them released early. And I'll show you how we do that. Critical chain for our aircraft. Same thing. We had over 51 aircraft in the plant, and on one day we took 17 of them out of whip. They were gone. We put stanchions around them with signs that said, by order of the commanding officer, you are not authorized to work on this aircraft. We took all the stands away from them. We closed all the doors up. We took all the data stands away. We took all the work orders out of the, because if it's in the barn, what will it do? I mean, people just walk by an aircraft and throw hours at it. I mean, I don't know how it happens. It just, you know, it just seems like, I'll tell you, here's a story. We had a Harrier that was done except for one part. We were waiting for one part. That part only needed 5 hours to put on once we got the part. It sat in our barn for 75 days waiting for that one part. How many hours do you think were clocked on it over the 75 days? For the 5 hours, 600 hours. 600 hours. People just walked by and just throw hours at it. Throw hours. It was amazing. You got to get them out of the barn. You got to get them out of the barn. And then we have to synchronize. You can't have these two things operate in isolation. You got to synchronize them. You got to have the critical chain sending signals to the drum buffer rope so that the A0 dates match up, all the due dates are matched, and every single customer, whether it's an aircraft customer, an engine customer, or a component customer, for a military sale customer, they all have to have the same priority. You can't put one against the other. Everyone's got to have their day at the table. So one date for every item, and then create one plan. Every item in our plant is on one master execution plan. It's updated every morning, and then that feeds our dispatch reports. So we have 6,000 some items on that. Every single one of them has a date that is due, and everything's tracked by that due date. Disassemble an item. What should you know right then? Disassemble it. Right there, you know the scope of rework that's going to be required, and you should start being able to order your parts. Right? I know what parts I'm going to need. So that's all we do at D0. We give priority to D0. We get the parts on order. Then everything else is held. We don't allow anyone to do any work to it. At A0 minus 21, it gets released, and we allow people to start working on it. Exception parts go on their own route because you can't afford the hold. As soon as you build one, it's full kit. So you either sell it, if that's it, or you set it in the full kit queue for the shop's available capacity. Now you have a full kit queue growing every day in front of each shop. Of course, some items you need material, so they sit in a material queue. So we monitor these two queue sizes. We monitor them at a system level, we monitor them at a shop level. How many items are in material queue, how many items are full kit queue. You throw your management attention to the material queue. Anything you resolve there feeds full kit queue. And then you release out of your full kit queue into your XR shop assembly based on their known capacity level. And if that satisfies customer demand, you're good. If it doesn't, you got to increase the assembly capacity. Throw overtime, hire people, put a second shift on, whatever the case may be. But we have the numbers, queue kits, assembly, throughput numbers, targets for every shop in our plant. This is done every day. We monitor this. So that's the DBR side. How do we implement that with critical chain? Same thing. We disassemble, clean, and evaluate our aircraft. We order our parts. And then the aircraft, unlike the other components, it still has work to be done. It's a carcass, right? But you got to repair the sheet metal and wiring and all that stuff. So it goes on its path. We still resource those phases in Concerto, monitor the progression of the sheet metal and mod phases. But the items that came off, they start into the DBR side. And then the A0s are all synchronized back to the full kit trigger point prior to assembly of an aircraft. And then we measure our full kit quality, our full kit quantity. We make very strict decisions about allowing things to go past their A0 date without a full kit. So the other day when Travis was talking in the advanced class, it was all about reaction time. So our next challenge is, do we know the high-risk items that have long reaction times that will jeopardize the sale date of the aircraft? If they're low risk, you might allow it to go past A0 and let them start. But you got to know that. We reorganized. So on top of all this, we're pulling whip out, we're giving them new tools. Said, let's reorganize the whole plant too. So that was fun. 3,300 people being reorganized at the same time. We formed our IPTs, our 10 IPTs. We gave them task managers that are only in the shop. They're monitoring the dispatch port. They're releasing full kits into the shop. They're doing the updates in Concerto. They're maintaining the checklists in the Concerto. They are doing all that. That's their arm in the production shops. And then we formed the Industrial Execution Department, which is the short-term stuff, and then the Industrial Logistics. And then it's a buyer-seller. So the IPTs buy and sell resources from the competencies. So how many sheet metal guys do you need? We use our pipeline resource model in Concerto to tell us the ebbs and flows. And we put those demand signals into the competency, and they tell us where the gaps are. So all the logistics elements are handled in the industrial logistics part. You can see them all. They're all the ones you're familiar with. Tooling, tech data, work stands, all the safety stuff. Do you have the full workload standards? Do you know, can you execute it? Or are you taking it on at risk? And then once it gets over the line into industrial execution, everything should flow pretty smooth at that point. So, cost to poor quality. Over the past 4 or 5 years, we've seen a 60% decrease in cost to poor quality, and that trend continues still this year. So our revenue is about $750 million. Our cost to poor quality is about $4 million. So we are down in the small percentages at this point. But we're going to get better because this is directly part of our rate. We cannot, the customer ends up paying it. We're a government facility. We can't eat it. So we're not a for-profit. So anytime, this is indirect, cost of poor quality is indirect, it gets built into our rate. So if we can reduce it, we pass that savings on to the fleet. Safety. Last year we had a 30% reduction in injury cases at our plant. It was the largest single year decrease since we started. So we are now down at about 30% of what we were just 5 years ago of annual injuries, recordable injuries, OSHA injuries. So this is big. Not only can you dollarize this, but this is a major strain on your resources. When you're injuring people, not just the person who was injured, when you think about all the other people that are impacted by that, it is a major drain to have an injury that causes a person away from work or workman comp or light duty or whatever the case may be. So that's a big deal. And we saw no degradation in that continued performance and safety. Efficiency. We reduced our overclocking this year by 45,000 hours against the standard. That was almost a 20% reduction in overclocking in 1 year. Largest single decrease in 1 year that we've ever had. I attribute that to the task managers, the folks on the floor, and the fact that we went in and actually took the workload standard number off the work deck. So people don't know how many hours. Right? We tell them, take whatever you need, and as soon as you're done, raise your hand, we'll give you another task. Right? When you put a number on a document, people will clock the number, or a little bit above it. Right? Again, we looked at a couple 100,000 clocking events, and the most commonly clocked number was workload standard plus 10%. So if you don't want to take the number off your workload documents, just reduce it by 10% and print them out with a lower number, and people will respond to it. You'll be a hero. So our efficiency was significantly increased this past year. And then our throughput went up 20%. We've only been doing this since March. This is a system-wide throughput number. So this is just over the last few months. So we're really anxious to see a full year of this. A couple hiccups going over the fiscal boundary, right? We're in continuing resolution. We have, switch over of contracts. So October's always a dip, and then we come back with a vengeance pretty quick. But we're excited about it. We're seeing the gains that we thought. And the culture, people are starting to get aboard. They're seeing this as hey, this is what we need to do. So all that, we're projecting right now that we're operating about $18 an hour lower than we were last year effectively. So well on our glide slope of trying to get us to our 2014 goal of $105 an hour competitive rate. So it's impressive, and I'm glad that we went all in this time. Because you got to have courage because the resistance comes, and it comes in droves. And you got to have all your senior managers, you got to have a committed commanding officer in our case that is willing to not make friends, stay the course, right? Because all they're wanting to do is see you blink. They just want you to just give a little bit, that compromise, that conflict compromise. You know the conflict's coming. The minute you start compromising and don't stick to what the desired end effect, you're sunk. They'll get a little bit in there, and they'll get a little bit more, and they'll get a little bit more, and they'll quickly unravel. You got to stay the course. We use the analogy of Cortez, right? Scuttle the ships. There ain't no going back. We're here. We're going. Obstacles, software. So we're the government, right? Trying to get software changes and big software changes in the government, especially in a new enterprise like Fleet Readiness Center, is a big challenge. It is hard, but we've been creative, and we've got some good tools now. So I believe we overcame that. Metrics, the alignment of your metrics. We heard that theme consistently all over the last couple of days. Are your metrics aligned to your desired end state? We've got to get that in place. And don't just put metrics around results. Really measure people's adherence to processes. If you follow the processes, the results will take care of themselves. So measure adherence to processes, and the results will be fine. Master execution plan, without that, I don't know how you would do it. You've got to have one document that shows everything, when it's due, and that has to drive everything, because that's the foundation. How do I stagger? How do I control whip? How do I do release control? If I don't have that plan, it's done. And then the people. We need people to switch. It's the DNA we heard from the last speaker. They got to associate themselves with the IPTs versus the competency. The sheet metal guy has to be willing to move line to line to line. He's a sheet metal mechanic. He's not a H46 mechanic. But we still have people that are, they got the tattoos, and they're so entrenched to their platform. We got to get them to be agile. We're seeing a shift in that. Our older workforce really do not like being moved platform to platform. The younger guys, they like it, man. They want to go to every platform. So we're seeing that natural shift anyway. We got to solve this material issue. We rely on DLA to help us with that. They've been partnering with us very strongly, and we've got to solve that. We can only get so far before that really starts becoming a big barrier to further improvement. So we've got to get on that. That's our big challenge this year. Rapidly moving capacity, management capacity, sheet metal capacity, whatever capacity, move it quick. How do you move it quick? We have union contracts that we have to adhere to. Our workforce is unionized. The union's been a good partner with us on this. How do we do that within the scope of the contract? And then reduce those shop queues. Get every shop to turn over every day. We've got a lot of our common process shops that in the past, everyone complained. You can't get anything through clean, paint, NDI. You just can't get it through there. They're clearing their queues every single day now.